you're fine with computer audio. That's what you want because it should be picking up the vocals. So. Yeah, you'll want to. It's not mine. It's yours. It's not mine. Go up and hit the two little arrows that are pointing to each other. Up in the upper top. The two little arrows that point at each other. Not that one. Okay, same one. That's all you gotta do. Yeah. Not that you're hitting the wrong button. Bring that window back up.
That's me doing that, by the way.
Huh?
That's me doing that.
Oh, I thought it was him.
Yeah.
The two arrows that point at each other. There. That just minimizes that toolbar out of your way. I just like to yell at Gary. It's satisfying. A little bit better than HPE last year.
Guys, is it working good?
I think so.
Do you need the mouse on our side then to? Got it. Good.
From the touchpad.
Guys online, can you see the screen that we're sharing?
Yep, I can see it all right.
Great.
Great. Thank you. You shoot the gun.
We can wait a couple more minutes.
All right, that's fine. And can you review our time constraints for us this morning?
Yeah, so the plan is obviously to start around 9 o'clock and then end of demo about 10 o'clock. We'll give you guys a few minutes to review anything that we haven't covered in our script.
Okay.
Anything that's worth noting that you guys want to kind of showcase,
Okay.
you guys can do so at that time. Just spend a few minutes doing that, and then we have reserved 30 minutes for a Q&A session to follow.
Very good.
So that's our format.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we can get started.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
John Hanish.
Hi, John. Gary Bennett. Manufacturing Engineering Manager.
Devin, nice to meet you.
Johnson. All right.
Hi, Charles did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I think we can get started here.
Come on out.
All set?
All set.
All set.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
If we need more chairs, we can always bring some more.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you folks this morning. Appreciate the opportunity very much. I guess from our standpoint, for the folks that are online, let you know who's all here. I'm Gary Benedict's Vice President of Sales. Charlie Stitt, who's our OEE technical manager. He does all of the site surveys, project coordination. He's got a team that supports him scattered throughout the world. Larry Johnson, our president. Dennis McNevin is our rep up in this area. He has sold you all of your Toshiba machines and whatever else he sells to you guys, but he knows prototypes quite well. And some of you probably recognize him. You worked with him. So if we give a quick roundabout, you guys, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. John Hanish, Manufacturing Engineering Manager for the Rosemont plant.
Judd Afley, Manufacturing Engineer from our Plymouth facility.
Eric is the Quality Manager for Injection Molding.
Thank you.
Alex Click, Manufacturing Engineer here in Rosemont.
Chris Stevens, Manufacturing Engineer in Dave Point R&D facility.
Eric Holzman, also R&D Engineer.
Chris Daniels, Project Manager R&D.
You and I have met sometime before.
Is that right?
So familiar with me. How long have you been at Proto Labs?
A year and a half.
Where were you before?
And Benfield.
You just look very familiar.
There's a lot of guys that work.
Maybe a trade show or something.
Possibly.
Post office. Syscon International, I'll give you an overview of Syscon International, and we're a multi-divisional company based out of South Bend, Indiana. We have a sensor division that manufactures products for steel foundry industry. We have another division called Microscreen that manufactures products for the circuit board industry. And PlantStar has been around for quite a long time. Some of the key timeline information about PlantStar is the Thomas family purchased this in the late 80s. We were actually founded by a group of professors in the labs of MIT that set up the first monitoring system for Tupperware. And then we became the first ones to introduce touchscreens on the factory floor to make it easier for operators to put in information. We saw the quality of information input into the technology, and the MES systems improved tremendously. We've done integration projects with machinery manufacturers where in the past you've been able to buy our technology embedded in their machine controls. We did that with Husky at one point in time. We did that with Van Dorn DMAG at one point in time. We're the first ones to move to Microsoft Windows actually on a desktop. And we're the first ones of our traditional competitors to introduce the use of OPC technology to get data out of PLC controls. We're headquartered in South Bend, Indiana. We have teams in England, Germany, and China with installations in several countries around the world. And we also have a new team down in Mexico. So with what we're going to show you today with the flexibility of PlantStar hardware, we believe that we're the right solution for you because the distinction between us and many of our competitors is the flexibility of the system to be able to monitor just about anything that you have on your factory floor. Many of our customers have been with us for more than 20 years, and a lot of those because of the flexibility of the technology, but it's also because of the way that we take care of them. We have a customer success team based in South Bend and in other locations around the world that lend a hand to the customers. They can come in through a VPN connection, do troubleshooting, diagnostics, do some additional training. Some of these names you recognize. Just a couple of quick examples. Valeo is a big automotive customer. We've got about 100 machines in their location. Hunter Industries, 2 factories with over 100 machines each. Out in California, Tijuana. Stanley Engineered Fasteners, you'll hear a lot more about in a couple of minutes. Whirlpool, Schaefer Systems, been with us for a long, long time. And many, many more customers than that. Stanley Engineered Fasteners. We started out with them in their injection molding operation. If you go to our website, which is about ready to go through a complete remake, you'll see a video that they created using our technology. A lot of Toshiba injection molding machines there, where we read the process variable data out of the PLC control, and we divert parts. We reverse conveyors to divert parts. And the IT director, Risa Case, in the last couple of years, challenged us to help her drive her ERP system even more. So what we did was developed an export directly out of our data collection module to J.D. Edwards, and she implemented that within their technology. And it has led to within 6 months' time, proved itself, and they've implemented that across over 1,000 machines in several factories now. They've improved their focus on automation. Key thing here, they've eliminated raw material inventory shortages, reducing costs, expedited supplier orders and customer shipments. They had one person per shift doing nothing but reporting and data entry that they were able to eliminate. And then ongoing with their integration with J.D. Edwards. So that's, when you think about how that impacts the supply chain, that's an area of ROI that a lot of customers don't typically take into account. They look at reduction in downtime, reduction in scrap. How does that improve our efficiencies in OEE? But upstream, and how that improves as well. Mark Cornish, the Vice President of Manufacturing for the division. Even today, they continue to do improvements with the technology. And in their metal fabrication plant around the corner from the plastics plant, in their first year, they improved OEE by 30% using the technology. So there are many different areas which the PlantStar system will help you. Machine performance, customer demand, labor information, product quality, and production costs. If you can control those things, in all likelihood, you're making money. So what we offer is real-time production and process monitoring. The system is very configurable as to what levels of permissions that you allow people to have in use of the system and data entry in the system. It's very scalable, so if you've got legacy equipment that does not have communication capability, we can, in all likelihood, tie into it. Charlie's an expert at that, he and his staff. Our next release that's in the beta test right now includes more and more traceability of operator functionality. It's very event driven, so we know exactly when we've done different things within the system and entered in data within the system. And a lot of different levels of alarming, both voice paging and alerts through email and text. We're making it more simple, more easy, improving the user experience to configure the system and get it up and running. So the next release of software makes it an easy step-by-step process to configure all of the system and get you running. So if you're expanding the system into other areas of the factory and bringing in more technology, you can do that. I mentioned the flexibility of the PlantStar technology. This is an example that we did for Hoof, an automotive molder in Milwaukee. You see in the middle there, Bond ERP system providing work orders to the PlantStar database and then down to the data collection module. Toshiba machine control, I think it was the V30 control, doing Ethernet interface, grabbing process variable data from that. They also have Kistler cavity pressure control system. Both the machine control and a Kistler system alert the robot that's extracting the parts to put product in the scrap, and why. We then get signals from the robot and put it into our system, this quantity scrap for this reason. And then we print the barcode label as well. I mentioned we can monitor just about anything on your factory floor. We've tied in with molding machines, with CNC machines, with welders, with blow molding, extrusion, die casts. And the topology is such that we have a data collection module that can monitor multiple machines at the same time. It's a proprietary box that we built to our specifications because with what we want it to do, we can't find anything else on the marketplace that has its capabilities. It also has a lot of fault tolerance built into it. If we lose the server, or what we call the APU, for whatever reason, the data collection module will still be up, running, gathering, processing, and storing up to 20 shifts of data. And then we can feed data to all of your different enterprise applications and feed it up to the cloud if you want it there. And you can use any type of device, since our software is browser-based, for the operator interface. If you have PCs on the floor already, take advantage of assets that you already own. Or we can supply a 15-inch touchscreen, or you can use tablets, whatever methodology you want. We can read barcode labels in the system and print barcode labels out of the system in real time. We've even called automated guided vehicles through our system in a couple of different installations. So our approach is to work with you. Charlie comes in and works with you to help define what your overall goals and objectives are. He does a site survey to get a good handle on what all of your machinery capabilities are. How are you operating your floor? What's the best optimal configuration for a PlantStar system? And then he develops a statement of work, and we agree on whose responsibilities are what, and it becomes a quotation then, a working document. Once the installation is done, we come back in and do system training for system administrators, for the users, for the managers, and get you up and running with the system, with the technology. Then we continue to follow up to make sure that you're using the technology effectively, so it helps you drive more improvements within the factory. We worked with a lot of different machines and done PLC interfaces with these and many, many more. The Toshiba is highlighted there with the asterisk, and we've already begun discussions with Toshiba to let us save set points within our system and then download those to the machine control when you're moving the job from one machine to the next. We've done that with some other machines like Nisi and Husky in the past, and Van Dorn. Spoke the other day with a representative from Toshiba. He thinks it's something that we should be able to do. So, and what we do there is we allow you to move it into the queue position on the machine control when we download the setups, and then you move it from the queue up to the active running job.
Do you have to do that within your MES, or could our MES communicate to that interface and do it?
We'd have to become more familiar with your MES system to see what's the best way. We want to make it the best way to do it. Alex, you have a question?
Nope, I'm just processing.
All right, good.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
You throw up their auxiliary equipment with SPI.
Yeah.
Have you done any work with Euromap?
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I figured, but I saw the SPI and I was like, all right.
Yeah, we actually were the company that developed the SPI protocol that became the industry standard for the auxiliary equipment.
Okay.
But Euromap is mostly with European machines at this point in time. We developed all.
Crossmify uses that as their standard machine interface. Euromap 63, Euromap 77, I think now. So we've done other ancillary equipment too. So we've worked with that protocol.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the big question now, since you have it up there. Most all of our Toshiba machines have the V50 controller. We did not get the communications port for it. And so are we going to have to purchase a communications port in order to collect extra data from the machine?
Yes and no.
I mean, this is going to be kind of a two-phase
Does that have to be
question.
How's that for an answer? I'm sorry.
Okay, well, this may clarify it. So I know we have production monitoring where we're just taking things like cycle time and shot count and getting an OEE with scrap and stuff like that. And then we have our process monitoring where we actually want to pull things like temperatures and pressures and cushion and stuff like that. So does that affect your answer of which one? Because on our older machines, we just may want production monitoring.
Right.
But the Toshibas, we would eventually want process monitoring.
Right. So you want both process and production monitoring, basically. And to answer your question, yes, that's for the connection between Toshiba and PlantStar, working together to be able to grab that information and do it as easily and simply as possible. Not to have to buy we call it, it's an interface module that we have available. Most people that buy that option are typically trying to use it for RJG, decoupling molding. But that's what they're working with Toshiba to come up with that, so they get the proper handshake to get all that information.
So if we go RGG, then do we need that module?
Yeah. Possibly, yes.
They're free.
Depending upon,
They're free though, right?
of course. Yes and no.
This is an open forum, isn't it?
No, I mean, it's
No.
Gary just laughed.
question.
No, it isn't part of our being able to grab it. That's why having the discussions with Toshiba and PlantStar, they can come together and work on how to get it the easiest, simplest way, and obviously the least expensive. Because otherwise the modules are pretty expensive.
Yes, and I mean that might. So you guys know that may be part of our down selection decision making.
Right.
Can somebody be able to go in and we don't have to buy the module,
Right.
which is a significant cost per machine, and get all the data that we want for process monitoring.
I think we have means and ways of doing it from what I've been told. So that's why we were in discussions. We wanted to do this ahead of time before we got here. Knowing how many machines you have with the Toshibas. And it's good to know that you want to do both production and you want to do process. So that helps. Because some people, all they want to do is production. They don't care about the process. So to answer your question, yes. That's what, between those two companies have developed, so they come up with the best way to do it.
Okay, so what I hear you say is it's highly probable that we do not need to buy the communications port.
That is true. Yeah.
I'm writing that down.
Yep. I think probably.
Good note. So, to add to that, is there, obviously there's a cost aspect of it, but is there a time? Because I know sometimes you can buy those cards, you drop it in, it's more expensive, but it's a plug and play, more or less. You just drop it in and it's good to go. You don't have to do any like configuring. It's just, is there any aspects to that, to speed? Because the only reason why I'm asking is we have, what, 150 or so machines here, maybe more. So if you come back and say, hey, we have a cheaper option, but it takes us a week to do one press, you know.
What my understanding, and Gary can chime in, we have, through Toshiba, has what they call an iPacket system, which they can take all the information from the machine and hand it off to somebody like PlantStar. That would be where I think they would want to work together, from my understanding, to be able to make both systems work together and do it, as I would say, the least expensive way possible.
You know, when we talked to Toshiba, iPacket was like almost abandoned by Toshiba.
Not
as far as
anymore.
support.
Not anymore. No. They've actually put more emphasis on it now than they used to. And they've actually had some people that are dedicated to work on it. So that was always the weak point. And the other part was weak because it wasn't a system you could use. You could only use it with Toshiba. You couldn't use it to come together with other machinery. So that was a kind of a weak point of that. So a lot of people don't necessarily have, their plants are not just all one brand. They have a mix and match in case.
So, same general question for Arbor. Would we need to buy the communications port for Arbor?
Arborg uses OPC-UA.
What about older machines?
Older machines was a serial interface. If you go way back to a serial interface, OPC-UA for Arborg's been around for a while though, which we do fully support. And from my experience with Arborg and OPC-UA, it's one of those things that's there. It's a software thing mainly that they have to do. For I can't speak to cost on it, but you would probably you would have to contact Arborg and have that enabled or added to your system. It's just an Ethernet OPC-UA interface, but it does have to be enabled or put in there. It's software, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
So what that means is turning on a couple of buttons on the operator screen in all likelihood.
So, but
Yeah.
what I hear is Arbor, we probably would need the communications port.
So all the silicone machines have it already.
Right. So let me clarify. New Arborgs, like the ones that we have for LSR, I'm sure we have everything. But in the UK is mainly what I'm thinking of is they have a lot of older machines and they have concerns of having to need to purchase communications port and the cost of that.
The other thing that we can do, and maybe if there is a cost from Arbor, we can also, in the data collection module, put in analog channels. All of our analog channels are optically isolated along with our digital input signals. So we can go direct to sensors as well. In some cases, it's a less expensive option than upgrading the machine control. And depending on the size of the machines and the way they're laid out, we may be able to do as many as 4 machines in a single data collection module. So that cost is spread out over this number of machines is optimized then. A lot of some machinery people provide their interface as a standard feature of the machine. Others don't. What they charge, I've heard prices. I know Engel charges $10,000 per machine to come in and just simply. They do have to snap in a card, but then do a little bit of programming on the control. I don't have a clue what Arbor charges.
You're speaking to. Go ahead.
Regarding UK, we don't have on our machinery OPC interface. They are brand new machinery, but we didn't buy them with that option. would charge us around 150,000 pounds for us to install that board into our machinery.
You say 50,000
That's
pounds?
150,000 pounds.
150,000 pounds to do all of the machines or just one?
Yes, all of our machines.
All of the machines.
And just one other question too, have you guys done much with Haas CNCs?
You just quoted a system.
Yeah, I have in recent years we have done more with Haas. Haas generally the way they work, they give you programmable outputs. So the ones I've worked with, is a direct output where we're taking direct. They offer, and I think the machines, the mini mills. I'm just referring to the plant I was just in. They were already in there. There were a handful of digital signals and a couple of analog signals. And then, to Gary's point, we tie those directly into our digital analog input capability in the DCM. And then, when you set up your program, you just set up what you want to come out those outputs on the machine, and we grab it and run. So things like runtime, spindle load, whatever. You can just tell it what it, and then we'll take those digitals that say here and here and read the analog profiles at that point in time. We have the ability to do that.
Monitor things like tool life and things like that as well.
Our system, or what we're moving into, does have a limited functionality of doing that, monitoring runtime on. You can componentize different components of tools and put that in there. Tool groups. But yes.
I don't want to get too far on that road.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I opened up Pandora's box.
That's fine.
But Daesun, did,
We all have lots of questions.
Daesun, did you have any other questions on the Arberg and connectivity?
Is it matter, by the way, that there's 3 different types of verticals and different styles of arbors?
No.
Controls the same.
No.
Okay, I mean, I know there's a lot on the evaluation that we're asking for, so but it was important to kind of go through that.
Okay. One of the things was on your spec list was automatic entry of scrap. Oftentimes machine controls can divert parts based on process variables being out of limits. When that happens, we can see that same signal, try to build an equation set that says when this scrap happens, put this quantity into this reason category, and you define the reason categories. Other ways are the weaken diverted parts based on process variables being out of balance. At the Stanley plant, where we've got the Toshibas, we send a signal that reverses the conveyors. So there's multiple ways to get automated scrap in the system. And it's a matter of Charlie spending some time on looking at your machines, the way that you're currently doing it, what automation you have with the machines, and then just configuring right I/O into the system. You also asked about us controlling the dryers, turning those on, turning those off. That's something that we can do with a slight modification of the data collection module that we've done with other plants. So from the data collection module, we can turn on your dryers, we can turn off your dryers. You asked about preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance. We work very closely with a third-party company called Coast Systems. Their maintenance software is very user-friendly. Does a very good job of letting you put in a complete history of the asset that you have, including all the different tools. They can track all the tool time. There was recently an article in Plastics and Machinery magazine about the integration we've done with them, one of our customers in Canada, and very nice clean interface. When they create, their database creates a work order for the machine maintenance, it shows up in our job schedule board, that you put in complete notes. But we've also integrated with other maintenance software packages as well, like DataStream, Main Server, DPSI. Do you have one that you're currently using? What are you currently using?
Piranha.
Piranha?
UK based.
Okay, so I've never heard of that one. We can look at it.
It's made by Shire Systems. SHIRE.
Okay. All right, we'll take a look at that. You like it?
It works.
It works.
Yeah.
one of Coast's big customers is Johnson & Johnson, and we've got it in some of the Stanley plants. And they're starting to do the hoof plants now. Pretty good group to work with.
It's asking me to reboot, I think. Good. Double time.
Thank you, Lynn. Alright, let's get out of that. What I want to show you is a little bit of the system as it is today, if I were to ship to you today. And then, as I mentioned, we've got our new release. It's in beta test. It's being installed in the second location for beta test today in Texas. Started yesterday, actually, in Texas, injection molding operation. So this is job scheduler as it is today. Jobs are in a Gantt chart format. Work orders can come into us electronically from AX and drop either in this list down at the lower part of the screen, and the scheduler drags and drops in the position. Or if you're assigning them within an ERP system to a specific machine, we can bypass this and drop it directly into the queue. So I've got 4 machines in this demo set, Alpha 1 through 4. Jobs coming out across the right. The jobs in green will be completing on time. The ones in red will not. They'll be late. And I've also got a utility turned on in the upper right of the screen that moves these jobs out to their required by dates. So you see, like on machine 4 here, we've got 46-hour and 27-minute open machine time before we have to start that Tyco demo product.
I'm going to interrupt you on.
Sure.
I'm sorry. For the most part, we have our own homegrown MES system
Okay.
that we're going to use for scheduling. So I don't think you need to go into too much detail here, but my question here is, do we have to schedule it into the system in order for us to use the ability to get the data from it?
Yeah.
Am I going to have to enter it into 2 systems in
Well,
order for
no.
for
We can do
us
it
to get the benefit?
as he spoke. This is kind of if you were using our system to schedule. We do direct imports from your ERP that just basically build the schedule in here. If you never want to open the screen and look at it, you don't have to. But it's gonna be in our system. It has to be, but it's automated. You don't have to schedule in here. This is a way, and we run into people who do things different ways. So this allows you to manipulate. But no, you don't have to. You can just give us what you have, and we'll plop it in there and go.
Yeah, every customer does it differently. And they really do. Every customer does it differently. And then
That's for sure.
exporting data back out of our database, as I mentioned with Stanley Faster, we can do it real time out of the data collection modules or out of the database up to your ERP system, whatever frequency that you want. And there again, every customer has a different set of data that they want exported out. Some customers just want scrap data. Some customers want all of the production data. The database is also open to you so that you can pull it with whatever application that you want and do your own reporting. Feed it into your MES system, let you do whatever reporting you're doing there.
Okay.
Drop into a little bit of process monitoring for you. Right now, today, you can do as many as 50 different process variables per machine. With the next release, it's unlimited number of process variables. And they can be from the machine, they can be from auxiliary equipment. We've even had customers monitor the ambient temperature and dew point in the molding room and map that to the machine data. We've even had customers monitor warehouse type information to help control the HVAC systems there. Central drying system, central water systems, not a problem for us. So here I've got cycle time and average pressure coming. That could come from a PLC interface like the Toshibas or the Arbors. And again, we can also tie into sensors, as I mentioned before. You can click on points to get the readings for those. You can get the table of the last 1,000, and you can look at the X bar R chart. We've got the ability to save every single cycle of data for you. For traceability purposes, especially with medical or ITAR type ratings, we've got, and what happens when we do that is we save every piece of information from every cycle. and we put it in an electronic file folder, date and time stamp it, so that you've got complete traceability all the way back to that site.
Have you had other companies then kind of extract that information into their own database to then print to the customer?
That's where I came from. We did that. I came from pharmaceutical, so we actually was customer demanded. So we had like quality. They wanted certain process variable that we pulled out and gave to them as batch record information.
And maybe a better way to ask that is, did they be able to do it like an automated way where it just kind of
Yes.
happened?
Yes.
Good.
As Gary mentioned, it's an open source database. So if you have a business intelligence tool, we can provide you with reports and outputs. But if you already have a business intelligence tool, you can hook right into us and grab too. So, and we can help you set that up. We can help you automate all of that.
So again, that information can come from the auxiliary equipment as well. It doesn't matter to us. And we can map it all together. One of the factories that he worked at, Charlie came to us from a company that he implemented 7 of our systems. They even monitored the central water, or the ambient temperature and dew point in the molding room, mapped that data to each of the machine's process variable data. They're able to tell within a couple of degrees when you start getting sweating on a tool. So they're able to speed up the cycle to that point. So some companies will have a limited amount of process data that they can bring to the table for you. We can really bring anything that you want. They even did a thing with, they had a warehouse, corrugated box, as you said, it came from pharmaceutical. Northwest Indiana, factory across from a cornfield. Certain times of the year, these tiny little springtail flies come into the factory, small enough to get through screens. Well, you can't ship boxes with bugs in them to pharmaceutical companies. And so they were able to use the system along with some help from Purdue to figure out, monitor the ambient temperature and humidity level, figure out when those bugs would start to migrate into the factory and take corrective action. And that was something they did all on their own. They didn't even call us to ask about doing it. The system's got that kind of flexibility. We want you to be as independent as possible to do those sorts of things to satisfy your own needs. And this version of software has Pareto pie charts on down assist and reject reasons. That's not a problem. Let me go into the here. The operator interface as it is today. It's going through a big change. But you asked about ease of putting in scrap, ease of putting in downtime. So this would be at an operator terminal, whether it's a tablet or your phone or PC, whatever, or one of our HMIs. You define all the down reasons, the reject reasons, and all of those things. So simply for an operator put in scrap, say because of specs, they select the reason and they enter in the quantity on a touchpad. Now if we're doing the automatic scrap diversion, as we discussed before, it would come into whatever category you want us to put it into. Some people call it startup scrap, some people call it auto scrap, some people call it process scrap. That's completely up to you with defining the system.
Now I'm guessing this is the out-of-the-box way to
Yeah.
To kind of track scrap. Are we able to modify this page basically to something different? Not something different, just to modify it to not just the buttons that we're going to push, but I don't know. Maybe we wanted to simplify it down to something even more simple than what you have here. Would we be able to do that, or do we have to go through PlantStar to modify the desktop or
The screen layout,
yeah?
that's done by us.
Okay.
Even from the standpoint of contamination, if we're getting thousands of contamination, we go, you know what, we need to look at this from the standpoint, is it grease or is it other contamination? Could we add another category there?
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that part's that's part of the template.
Yeah.
But just trying to understand future costs and changes with dashboards in general, and
Well,
if
you'll see.
manufacturing engineer can create those dashboards, or we
Right.
need to go
You'll see a couple of examples of dashboards in a second with the new system.
With scrap tracking.
Yeah.
While I'm going far away, I saw that they had a system where every shot on the press had to be accounted for, or the order couldn't move forward. It was like a fail-safe, so they couldn't just pencil with it. Every shot had to be allocated. Is that a capability here? We had 110 shots, we made 100 parts. They have to say where those 10 went before it can move forward.
Well, we're assuming everything's good unless we're told it's bad. So once we see, say the order is 410 pieces,
Okay.
when we see 111, we're going to alarm for you that you're in a job overrun.
Whatever that set point is.
Yeah, whatever that
it
set
would just show an overrun.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't necessarily require every single shot to be allocated. It would still keep running. It would be a manual entry for the scrap reasons, whether the counts match or not. Is that, make 110 parts, we scrapped 10, but we don't have to tell the system what we scrapped it for. It'll still run the next job, it'll close out properly. Or can we make a fail-safe to say, no, you can't close out until you allocate where those 10 bad parts are.
I see what you're saying.
That'd be a custom piece from us, but yeah, it would be through outputs or something. We could say, and that gets more into net part counting, some more intricate things. But there's different ways we can count scrap, and for the sake of time today. But yes, we can customize that to, if you needed to throw an output, throw an alert, something that says, hey, somebody, we had, if we use auto scrapping through net parts counting, if 10 parts showed up in auto scrap and nobody went in and categorized those, sure, we could throw an alarm for you or our DCM has outputs built into it as well. So if you needed a hard signal output, we could give you that.
And percentage scrap, like the CPKs on the process, could we have that on these kinds of things too? I mean, like,
On scrap?
yeah, like percentage scrap tracking over time, graphically.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll show that.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we're there now. I mentioned the next release is in beta test right now. This is the operator interface with being able to have setup sheet type information shown at the operator level. You have documentation, how the machine set up, packing instructions, operator instructions, whatever you want. You have video, and it looks like my video is not loading there. And you have part images and things like that as well. So you can, it's wide open as to what you put into the setup sheets. And then with the rejects and down and assist, we're adding at the operator interface level reasons charting. So you've got that. Is that what you're looking for? Yeah. And you've got unlimited number of rejects in the new system, and unlimited number of down and assist calls, unlimited number of process variables. So if you wanted to do more of that categorization of scrap or downtime, you could do that. It's more flexible to do that. Production dashboards such as this, you can create your own. And they can be, this system allows many more permissions on an operator and manager level. So if you wanted to create a KPI chart solely for your own use and make it private, you can do that. Or if you want to make it public, it gets published not only for access to anybody who's got use of the system, but also at the operator interface like what this is. You can bring those up. So there's your total number of rejects per machine, for instance. Production summary screen, it shows you what the state of the current job is. With, again, the ability to have digital imaging so that you know what part is running, what part is next in the job queue. machine status dashboard so that you can see the OEE real time on any machine within the cell. So these are all of my machines that are running. We've got some real time alerting going on with down reasons, with some assist calls. There's a machine with high rejects. We can click on the field and get all the metrics for OEE. All right down there at the machine level where you really want it because you're out walking the floor. You don't want to have to come back and again, this is all browser based, so if you want to have it on your handheld, you can do that. Or if you're walking the floor with a tablet, you can do that. At the desktop level then, you've got that same charting I just showed you, but then you've got also the configuration of the system. You've got machine status viewers, and the configuration is much easier to do within this generation of the system. You can set up different display groups, different machine groups. So if you wanted to look at all of your small tonnage Toshiba machines versus all of your large tonnage machines, you can do that in different display groups, or by customer. Say we're making products for GM versus Stanley Black & Decker. You can do that.
So the subgrouping in those are determined by us?
Yes.
You're cellular manufacturing for different needs, so it's here, that may be flexible in the future depending on the next
Sure.
event, but basically what I'm hearing is we can get data by cell.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least dashboard by cell.
Yeah. Okay.
You can also overlap cells too, so you can have your but if you can say I want I-10
Okay.
machines, you can then do that as well. So if you look at different material groupings.
Is that a standard capability of this type of person monitoring, or is that me?
No, but I'm just judging by the way it's fully configurable, so we can drop in and place whatever. You can have any machine in multiple groups, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Is that helpful?
yeah.
In this version of software, we're making it very event driven, so that any function that happens within the system is logged. One of the questions that we've had from customers for a long time is, I don't know exactly when people are entering scrap, because some people will put it off the side and then come back, or they'll wait for a QC inspector to come by. So it's up to you, so whether, first of all, whether or not you want the operator to have to log in to do that, or if you want it wide open. And then anytime that an event takes place like that, we do date and time stamp it so that you've got the complete history. Anytime somebody makes a change to the system, it's logged. Anytime somebody makes a change to the schedule, it's logged.
So, go into more detail. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong on this. So all of our employees have badges.
Yeah.
So if we want them to walk up, we have a card reader right at the press.
Yeah.
And we want them to badge in. That's their way of signing in. Can you guys tie it into our system so that as they see this number, they know exactly who it is?
Oh, yeah.
And there's some type of, I don't know, 4 or 6 digit pin so that someone can take someone else's badge and start swiping away.
Yeah.
There would be probably a couple ways that could be done. It either be directed through Ultra Pro, we have the HR involved, they manage that system. If it can connect to Active Directory, we could potentially do something that way as well.
Because then it's not just the what, it's also the who's and.
Exactly. So today we have traceability in our system to know who did it, but it requires them to go to a drop down menu, find their name and click on it. There is the potential possibility of human error of selecting the wrong individual, or Bob really pissed me off last week. I'm gonna pick him and do a really bad job, and he's gonna get in trouble.
Right.
And we currently do not do that for our fiction operators. So that would be a big change.
Yeah, the new system, we're targeting doing that. We have ruggedized tablets that actually allow people to use the camera, whatever, to scan in the badge. We're in the process of doing that, so yeah, that will be coming.
Those
You're not
tablets,
the only ones that have asked for that.
those tablets we purchased directly through you then?
I'd prefer you to do that, yeah.
Well, I'm always curious, the reason I ask is that
That's a yes
depending
and
on how
no.
it's set up, we would still have to manage it, so we need to figure out how to kind of bring that into parity with our support model.
This is
as well
Nick
as
Rakowski,
security.
who runs our IT help desk.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, then, okay, that's why I guess I thought
Yeah, we're interfacing into like Active Directory and stuff is what we're moving into with the new system. The classic system, we kind of kept the people, the list of people in our system, but that was fully importable from your system. So we just wrote a piece off for information. It said when you went into your labor system and added Jane Doe, whatever, we grabbed that. And then we have in the past, through devices, used card readers and stuff. We just know you've given us their number, their name. We make that part of our labor system. So.
We do something similar for Avanti with the password reset tool that we're going to be using here shortly, where a pin would be contained, like a security pin, like you were talking about, would be contained within your system, and then we pull from Active Directory to confirm the user as well as the badge number. So we could potentially do something. We probably need to explore that further.
Yeah.
In order to figure out how that would work.
Yep.
Number of options or something.
Yeah.
My previous shop, you always had put your username in, put your password in, and I think we counted that it was all in all during an entire year, the person spent between 3 and 4 weeks entering their username and password in hours.
Yeah.
So we were trying to figure out how do we make that go away,
Sure.
or make that scan very easy.
We've done a lot of installation over the years where we've done card readers. And now we've had a couple of customers ask us, well, can we take it to the next step? And we're waiting for more definition from them to where somebody logs in and the system alerts, well, you're not qualified to run this job in this machine. And we actually did that years ago as a custom project for Collins and Aikman Automotive, and Collins and Aikman went bankrupt, went out of business. But what we would do is we'd flash that up on the operator screen, and then at the same time send an email to HR and to the plant manager saying, Jim Smith just tried to log in, he's not qualified, and then can give opportunities for training. So we're asking these couple of customers who have asked for this now for more definition, so we know what pathway to go with adding that as a feature in the system.
I think that there's probably a lot of systems that as you grow, you have more opportunities to add more functionality to the system. So that would probably be one that would be after implementation of some of these.
And we listen to customers extensively to learn. That's how so many of them have been with us for more than 20 years, as I showed in that previous slide. Because we pay attention to what the customers are doing with the system, but also what they're doing with their business. Are they moving into a whole new line of manufacturing? Are they adding blow molding when they haven't had it before? Well, we've got experience in blow molding that we can give them some guidance. Most parts of the country, we have great reps as well, like Dennis, who can also give additional guidance if it's something we're short on. So we listen for those sorts of things. Here we've got where you set up permissions for people within the system, and we're setting it up so that you can set up in groups. So if you have one permission set for operators, as you add new operators into the system, all you have to do is put in their name, select what permissions group they're supposed to have, and it's automatically populated. But you can see it's pretty extensive.
Is this something that can be also tied to Active Directory?
It's something we're exploring, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but as it stands right now, this would be something that would be contained within the...
Yeah, be when in the current system it is self-contained within PlantStar, but as we move into this, we're definitely working on integrations into more Windows-based stuff, because our system is Linux. It is full Linux on both sides, but there's a lot of that coming into this new product.
I'm thinking like automate, so when we set up a new hire, would you set up people in specific groups so you could potentially have that automatically pulled before you can write permissions to the system? Otherwise, it just has to be manual. Yeah.
I'm going to create a chart. So I'm calling it Protolabs x-axis. Let's see. 10 data points. We've got these different available categories. So say slow status and fast status. Save. So I've created a report configuration, and then these alerts come up all over the place. Let you know what you've done. I go into production events, there's a configuration select. There's a proto labs. I just did add that chart configuration. Save. If I did that right, it'll show up. Sometimes when I talk at the same time I'm doing this, I skip it down. Should be proto labs right there. Simple as that. And again, you can create those to be private. So if you had a special KPI that you want to look at just for yourself on these machines, you can do that. But if you want it to be public, you can share it. And then you have the privilege, I think, too, to share a private chart if you want with specific people.
So if we have, say, setup start, and they come in and they log in, they start the setup, and then they come out to the first good part, could we chart that cycle time, that lead time from start to end of setup to first good part over time?
Frequently, customers will consider setup time to be a down reason.
Just
So
that's the code down.
yeah, or whatever you want to
Set
call
up,
it.
yeah, you name it yourself.
You can call
So
it
you
whatever.
can.
Yeah.
This is just normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
We
always
would
been
just wanna be-
functionality of the system.
Careful to not duplicate our current system. They're already putting in that they're in setup now, so.
We wouldn't want to have to add functionality here if we already have it, but if it's default. It would be interesting to see of the things that we don't have in the MES, what we might want to track.
Yeah, and I mean, the things that we don't have, that, more than likely, we would want some sort of data stream to come in and integrate into our MES system. It's unsure of what we would want to display on our web pages through our MES system, and what's best to be displayed through a system like this. I would imagine that for scrap and dashboards redisplaying that data to the cell, we would use something like this. And then there you got that gray zone of, all right, well, what do we need to put into the system to make sure that everything works and we get all the data back? And what can we just feed from our MES system? What can we get back?
So what are your MES system, is it physically connected to the machines, the machine cycles? No. Okay. So
And I guess that's our gap. That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we're looking for a press monitoring system.
okay. Good. As we mentioned a little while bit ago, you can set up tool groups as well. There's a tool change schedule based within the system, so that you know when you're expected to make the tool changes and the material changes, so that you can, especially the material, you do a more timely job of prepping the material. If you need to do some blending, if you need to do some drying, you can do that. Let's go into the job schedule. It's done sometimes, everything. Tool maintenance events can be put in the system.
Is it,
Sure. We allow you to create tool types and tool groupings. So especially, so if you've got family tools with mold inserts, you have a grouping of those. It could be a tool group, so that we can track each insert. Or with the CNC machines, as Charlie said before, with different tools that you might have running in there, there can be another tool grouping. And for this product, we always run these tools. That allows us to not only show the forecast when you need to make that change, and what tool grouping to use when you're making that job change, but also we track the history, utilization, and the maintenance that you're doing.
by the group or by the tool?
Both.
Well, you
Okay.
create the tools in the groups. We define that ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have 40,000 tools on site. Would we be able to automate that and get the data into the system, not into the system, but stream it into your system?
Sure. We would on setup, and we do that now. Even this is a newer feature, but even now, I think of the molding world, we have what we call product standards imported, and our product standards are all of your information about your tools. If you have in a simplistic world, a simplistic injection molding world, maybe I have one part number that's made by 5 different molds. So we have that. Now we've taken that to a different level, but even so, we can input. If you've already got that set up in a structured file or in a database somewhere, we can come and grab that and import it directly. You don't have to sit and key in 40,000 tools.
Right, you have a reoccurring theme.
Yeah. And then we do that. We generally set that up as like even a daily or on-demand update. So if you change something on your side, just run the PlantStar import. We'll go grab your changes and go. Or you can make it real time if you wanted.
And this is where I'm showing my ignorance when I ask anyway. We have the molds in the press. They go into multiple different presses. Can we see how many actual shots on mold? Not just good parts, but how many actual shots on mold?
Yeah.
And the same with like a CNC turret location.
Mm-hmm.
That one's ran 35 spindle hours.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's all tracked.
Absolutely. And we can either provide reporting for you, or you can use your BI software to create your own reports. Again, the database is open.
And it feeds into predictive maintenance. So we could say at this point, stop, repair, replace, check, whatever.
What we do with Coast, and we could do with the software that you're not so enamored with, is we can pass all those cycles to the database as well. And I know I can speak of Coast, I can't speak of the ones you've got. But with Coast, you can create the work orders based on cycles, runtime, or regularly scheduled maintenance events.
Like calibration?
I'm sorry?
Could you program in calibration cycles? As a
Sure. It's just a maintenance interval. Yeah.
Yep. So then when it hits that point, it automatically creates that work order for you,
Okay.
so that you know to do that job.
So that's your meter, so it's an automatic meter.
Yes.
It's feeding you the maintenance.
Yes. Yes. And that integration that we did for our customer in Canada actually enabled them to increase their OE by 3 or 4 percentage points. They're already at a high OE percentage with use of the PlantStar system. When they bundled the two together with tight integration, it enabled them to jump it up a few more points.
Gary, the data that's stored that provides this information, is that on your servers? Is that we provide our own servers? Obviously, this information is kept in some kind of a database,
Right.
It's all on your side?
Well, we either provide a physical server or we'll do a virtual server for you.
Okay, we'll do a virtual.
I know you happen to have a server farm here.
Yeah, just asking.
It's all to answer your question in detail. It's all contained within our system, though. So for a virtual server, normally for a customer setup, you guys will work with IT. IT will say, okay, carve me out a space, so to speak, in the server. We can through VPN we can do the enterprise Linux setup. We'll do the PlantStar setup and everything, the database setup, but it'll all be part of the package you purchase, that database and all the data. So it goes in like that.
You actually prefer virtualized environment then?
We can do either. We can do either.
I just sold a physical server to a customer this morning.
If you want a box, we build our own physical servers. So
It would be preferable if we could just use a virtual machine because we do have
Sure.
fairly heavy infrastructure at this point. One question I guess I'd have with that too is that does it need to be on-prem or can it be? We have like a colo in Texas as well as in Egan. Would it?
you want to answer that, or you want me to? It doesn't need to be. No. Really, you can be anywhere. Our server, our DCM, the data collection modules live on your production floor. They have to. They talk to a server. That server can be here. It can be wherever. Just the only thing I tell customers when they ask about that is we are a real-time system. You're counting on us to do things up to the second. As long as you have reliable communication between here and that offsite location, then it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
So latency isn't as big of an issue then. It's just having a reliable connection.
Yeah.
We've got a customer in Lodi, California, that their server sits in Charlotte, North Carolina. So.
And they have a physical box from us too. That's Schaefer. Oh, they went virtual as well.
Oh, physical box.
Yeah.
Sitting in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Sitting in
Yeah.
Charlotte, So I created some tool maintenance events in the system as well while we were talking. So So you're on tool one, check oil. You can set how long it took you to do that event, hours, minutes, seconds, whatever. So we'll just say 10 minutes here. And the date, calendar. And we can put in additional notes. And create that event. It's in the system. Of duration. Means duration required. Let's see if that takes care of it. Ah. Create, so that must be that. So then that's logged into the system. So you can track all that functionality, all that in the system. Unlimited number of materials that can be tracked.
When you say unlimited, meaning we can constantly increase that
In what we call the panorama system, we could monitor as many as 4 materials in a recipe, in a single recipe for injection molding. Well, now it's expanded. So if you want to add some more of your bomb type functions within that as well, you can do that.
So this is basically, if I'm reading this right, this is telling you we're using 25 grams per shot and we're going to run out of material at 2 o'clock. We got about 2 hours to dry it or whatever it is and refill. So this is predicting the time at which we're going to run out of resin.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that link to the dryers?
To the dryers?
on drying time only, though, right?
Well, it depends on what you, let me give you an example of a project we're working on right now with a medical customer out west. They had a huge recall, and they've been a long time customer doing strictly production monitoring. But they had a huge recall, and the root cause of the problem was that the material hadn't been dried long enough. And these are invasive parts. So we've expanded the system to do process monitoring on the machine itself. We wrote an interface to the GammaFlex hot runner control, interface to the dryer system that they have, so we can monitor the dew point and the temperature. But they're also putting in an alert so that it comes back to the data collection module. If it doesn't, first of all, we're confirming the dryer's been up long enough. And then if the level gets to a point where it needs attention, it sends a digital signal to the data collection module. We automatically call material as an assist function to the press to take care of the problem, and start an internal clock in the data collection module counting down. If they don't take care of that problem, by the time we get to 0, we're going to send a digital output from the data collection module to the machine to put it into lockout, put it into manual, so they can't make suspect parts anymore. But still keep that assist call active, so that somebody takes care of it, and automatically assign the down reason to material.
And you mentioned, I connected most of those dots. You mentioned moisture content, temperature, that type of thing as a monitoring function on the dryer.
Yeah.
Is there a set point at which you can say it's not at a moisture content level we need it to be at, and then alarm?
Yeah, that's a standard PVAR alarm. Yeah, all of our process. I don't think Gary showed it in the old system. If you bring up you have just the regular process summary chart, that'd be a good.
I don't think you guys are going to be looking at moisture, though. You only can look at dew point and temperatures.
Yeah, but whatever. I mean, no. Go to the process summary.
Unless you have moisture analyzers.
Very bottom.
You have to have them on every dryer.
Every process variable you put in the system has assignable limits by you, and this is down to the product level. If something, and this is a generic process variable, whether it's a temperature, a time, a pressure, if something violates one of those thresholds, you're going to get an alarm, and that not just a visual alarm, that can be tied to whatever you want. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it can be tied to the diverter as well. That's
Yeah.
where we can send an output to divert parts. Yep. Automatically assign the scrap. And that list can be different from one machine to the next. So you talked about your cell concept. Maybe in some of the cells you want to look at the dryers, and others it's not important to. So you don't have to have the same process variable set in each cell or each machine. Your LSR machines obviously would have different process variable settings that you want to look at versus the injection molding problem. And if you have some central systems that you want to monitor, central water, central dryer, things like that, that could be set up differently.
I have customers that do what they call active drying, so they monitor the temperature on the inlets and outlets of the dryer. There's a direct correlation to the temperature change. If the material is set there too long, you will start to overcook it.
So, can you retrofit older dryers with that functionality?
It has to be a part of the dryer already.
The temperature.
Now, I'm not talking about their system, but they're doing that with existing dryers that have active drying. So they also have it on the bottom of the dryers. They can't take material out till it's been in for an X amount of time. So it's called active drying. So you can't take it out too soon. So they don't have a problem. And then the monitoring dew point. You can't monitor the moisture content on a dryer unless you had a moisture analyzer in the dryers.
That's a lot of money for
A
drying.
lot of money. Yeah. There are systems you can put on. They are expensive.
Yeah, that's not an option. But that is intriguing that at least with the temperature differential, we can estimate when the material dry or potentially overdry.
Overdry, especially when you get into
Alarm.
nylons, urethanes, you do not want to overdry them. And you can't tell you've overdried them.
Me
A lot of
too.
times until the customer gets the part, they fail.
Oh,
Especially in nylon.
We're kind of going down a rabbit hole.
I'm sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You mentioned moisture, that's why I had to point it
It's like,
out.
oh, this is cool. Sorry, I'm learning.
We've even had customers monitor their central water system, so that as they added machines, they could see degradation in the flow, so they could forecast when they needed to expand their water system. The system is very, very flexible to accommodate those sorts of things, and if it's something crazy and unique that we've not run into before, we'll sit down with you and we'll try to figure it out what's the best solution. But there are a lot of things that we've done as we've outlined.
I have a real quick question, circling back on the server situation again. What variants of Linux do you support?
We are CentOS right now. Enterprise is Red Hat's Enterprise is what CentOS.
Okay.
I can't tell you the version number, but I know it's CentOS.
But not Ubuntu.
No,
Okay.
currently.
And then for the endpoint, you were mentioning tablets. I assume that you can also connect from a computer. Is this via the browser, or is it like a thick client that you can use?
It's all browser based. Our interfaces are just as long as you have a web browser and connection to the network, you can get in.
Okay.
And we've had customers use thin clients, laptops, PCs, tablets, our HMI that we manufacture with a 15-inch touchscreen. As long as it runs browser.
That is a move we made in the new system. Our current system, all the operator interface screens are browsable, but there still is a Windows installable client. In the new system, that Windows installable client becomes browser based as well, so it's a totally mobile system.
So we wouldn't want to actually probably get used to the client then at that point. That's going away with the new version.
What is the new version?
Well, like Gary said, we've got second beta going on right now as we speak on the production monitoring part of this. The process monitoring, we're probably looking at early 2020 because it's been a complete different direction, revamp, the latest software tools available, and we really haven't had a major upgrade in over 10 years. So, and we do things right. We don't release it until we can hang our hat on it. So, but it's designed to easily upgrade from the current system, so we can take data from your current system, assuming you go that direction with us, and that all gets transferred to the new system, so you don't lose historical data or your setup information, all that you've gone through to get things set up short term.
At the operator interface screen, you can also see the entire job schedule. But I was thinking with the setup sheets function, perhaps there's a place where we can have links to some of your other MES pages. And there again, if your MES is using digital imagery or even Word documents or Excel spreadsheets or something like that, it could be linked in through the product standards, and that would drive what you use for your operator interface, whether you use a PC or thin client, something like that. But those sorts of links just can be done as well. And we've had customers that have done that with URL addressing to reach out and grab that information from other systems and display it on our setup sheets. So it might be photographs of examples of good parts versus common scrap problems. It might be PDF documents showing the tool drawing. It might be, we've got Hunter Industries, who I mentioned before, they've got schematics set up in there so that when our maintenance folks are tending to machine issues, they can easily look at the schematics or maybe the drawing on the tool, and they don't have to go all the way back to their desktop or whatever. So we try to link it in and make it as automatic as possible for you. So anytime that you do have those linkages in the system, when that job does get scheduled down to the factory floor, all those come with it so that you see it all right there.
How customizable is this screen? The setup sheet. I know you get like, video or PDF.
Mm-hmm.
Say if there's something that we have that we want to put into this screen, that's something we work with you to say, like, we have a very specific setup sequence with some math and a few tables that we want to inject into this. Is that something that we could put in here, or is it pretty hard coded as is?
No, it's usually something that's pretty reasonable for you to do yourself, especially URL addressing. And we had a customer that they didn't want us to reach into the engineering server for blades, so they actually set up a separate bypass server. So as they created new documents from engineering, they got saved in both. So they had a tree. Primary was maybe tooling information. Then there are secondary files that they just touched, and they showed up on our operating interface. So it's pretty flexible.
So what?
You're asking about like editable fields.
Yeah.
Like doing math.
Like actually doing this, it's like our process development. When they go to it, they have to start up a brand new tool, which we do kind of from the facility, 50 to 75 times a day, roughly. So when they go through that process, we want them to actually enter in the steps, the results that they got as they went through it. So then that information, as it transfers from one facility down to this facility, they would have access to see all the steps and the methodology that they went through to get to. Because that's kind of what we've learned, is that there's some knowledge loss as it goes from sampling to production. We want that information to travel with the mold itself.
Well, two things there. First of all, that's one of the things that we're talking with Toshiba about, so that we can save those setups within our system as part of the product standards. So when you move it from prototype to production, you can download it in those settings in the machine control. So that's one aspect of it. The other is, we had a customer and they did this all on their own. They used Adobe Readwrite to create their setup sheets. Their standard operating procedure, they had a cell leader for every 8 machines. Only that person was allowed to make setting changes on the machine. When they did, they would come back to that PDF document. They would document the setting changes. When they were required to save it with digital signature, it created a deviation watermark on the page. When they saved it, it emailed it to the plant manager and the engineering manager. They did all of that themselves with their IT group. They didn't need us at all. How are we doing on time, Alan? I'm a former politician turned salesman. I can talk all day.
So we're at our demo time, a lot of demo time.
Okay.
We can keep going if everyone, if people want to keep seeing stuff. I obviously wanted to reserve some time for Q&A. That could be maybe more overhead, or maybe even get in a little bit finer detail. I guess my question to you is, how much more demo do you have planned to show us that we haven't reached?
I've given you a fair amount, and we've been doing a lot of Q&A as we go, so unless something you think I should bring in?
No, I think you've covered
Continue with
the
Q&A?
basics. Yeah, when we can use the demo as kind of a background for the Q&A moving forward. So.
Well, we do that.
So I'll make a generalized statement. I think I might speak for most of the group here. I don't think we have any interest in the old version. I think the new versions are only, after seeing it, I'm like, it's going to be hard to kind of go backwards in that perspective. But,
Understand.
So with you guys' schedule, you kind of know where it is for Rollo. Is there a potential possibility that we become a maintenance testing site? That we would get an early version of it, as long as it doesn't slow us down, which from what I'm seeing, I can't imagine it slowing us down. It's only going to help us.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things that we're going to find that we're like, hey, it'd be really cool if we had these 5 fields. It would make life for us 100 times
We
easier.
try to find everything we can, and that's why we beta, because the users are ones that, and usually it's typically minor things, or some tweaks that we have to do, so.
Yeah.
And every user's different.
Yeah.
If we were to go this route, we firmly believe in the crawl, walk, run, so, it would be a fairly basic rollout at first to get production
I would say
monitoring.
we could probably start with production, and then as we get our process part done, add pieces to it, so you guys can start kicking the tires as things progress.
And they're
Definitely interested in that, you guys are.
You're kind of building on this. We'll kind of like the basic of the basic. Is the press on? Is it running? Is it down? Why is it down? And then there's going to be the engineering core that'll probably be doing the monitoring, just not. Our operators, those on the floor, will not be aware that we're doing it in the background. So we'll be testing it, trying to figure it out, understand it, so that as we get to that point of, hey, okay, we're going to introduce this, we're really confident, we understand it,
That's the process
are
we
the,
went
are the
through.
subject matter experts versus kind of just going, well, I'm not really sure what's happening
That's
here.
the process we went through with our first beta test. We had companies doing it on the side. The customers at the time were using our current system, and they, like you guys, didn't want them to see the new system. That's not wanting to use the system that they're used to, because there's a big difference in the user interfaces and that. So yeah, that would be an excellent approach for you guys. And I'll have to go back and when we get that point to figure out a plan how we can make this happen. But yeah, we're definitely open.
What kind of connectivity requirements are there at the endpoint? I imagine there's some sort of Ethernet required, or network required for
Yeah.
the endpoints, as well as whatever device you're using to interface with the platform.
Yeah, the system itself, the DCM's, the server to the operator interface is all network. Now when you talk about machine interfaces, like from the machine list I say, like what you have with the Toshiba machine, that's a network interface as well. There are legacy machines. I use that nice word, legacy machines. I don't use old. Where we go back and we have serial interfaces. Well, if we run into one of those, then what you need is a dedicated, 485 line from the machine to our box. There's no reason why a Toshiba or anybody's network interface can't go through switchgear. There's no point-to-point stuff that has to happen there.
So do you in that situation, especially for those older devices, we actually do have that in our other service lines. We use digiboxes
Okay.
for that to convert from like a parallel to network.
Okay.
Serial connection to network.
Yeah, we've done serial to Ethernet conversion as well too. So in fact, we've done it on more of a case-by-case basis. But we've done, in fact, a lot of our older serial interfaces have gone through revamps to get them through a converter. Because nobody wants to run serial lines anymore. I don't blame you, but
So then the other question is, with the appliance, I assume there's an appliance that needs to be attached to each press for the.
not a specific appliance. The appliance is the DCM. And the DCM in a process monitoring world, if you're doing process monitoring, can service from 1 to 4 machines. So and it doesn't have to be right in the machine. It's a box. It's not small. It's a really all that it goes in the machine is generally isolation relays for any digital signals. Cycle is one thing. One thing we pull from each machine is a hard cycle signal, and we do that for the strict reason that is a reliable. I'm getting cycle signal. We're not relying on network communication or any kind of other stuff. And those are just very small 24-volt DC isolation relays, optically isolated relays that we power from our side, and they can just DIN rail mount. So there's no physical, PLC or chunka device it has to. It's just very small relays. And then usually if it's a machine interface, it's just a network connection.
Okay. But then there's a box. Essentially, we'd have clusters of presses.
Mm-hmm.
That would have a central box that each one would connect to, and then that would connect the network back to the central server.
Exactly.
Okay. And
Exactly.
that is running Linux. It sounds like.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. The DCMs, the data collection modules, the boxes, and the server are all running Linux. Yes.
So then we would just need a network drop to the DCM.
Sure. Yep.
What's a typical install time?
And then to each HMI.
Well, you mean for?
So we have 100 presses. are we talking months to get all that set up?
Well,
Are we
it de-
talking weeks or days?
It depends on the most common method of installing things. Now we do full turnkey installs for some. We do have a few customers that come and say, "Hey, you do everything." That's not generally the way it does because you guys work with your own contractors. You got people. So what the general way it works is we ship you the hardware. We'll guide you through this process, but you rough mount the hardware, rough wire if there are like the cycle signal wires and if there's any other stuff, and then we come in and do all the final terminations and stuff. So given the time it takes you guys and contractors to do that, which generally isn't very long, our commissioning process for I think for a plant this size, I think was 3 weeks. Our guys on site. That's after you do all the rough wire in and hang the boxes and
When you say plant estimate, I'm talking about this one right here.
Rosemount.
The wiring and everything, so a couple months. Yeah,
Hopefully, we'll do it one time here.
roughly.
I would say that's
Yeah.
from my experience, it's a ballpark.
Yeah, we just have to,
I'm a
we can
project
go through line one.
Yeah,
They
yep.
come out. Usually they request, especially for a bigger project, they request roughly a month lead time to make sure that we can get everything in place. In terms of the endpoint terminals as well, would that be a one-to-one relationship with the presses, or is that going to be centralized as well? Like one tablet would run 4 presses?
Whichever way you like it. The browser screens are set up. You could lock them down to be, and it's basically done through linking, just the dynamic links, or you can run 20 machines off of one display if you like. There's a page you can go back to that brings you to a machine selection page where I can leave machine 1 and go to machine 2.
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a one-to-one relationship.
No.
That's something we could talk about in terms of like how lean we want to be. How
Yep.
quickly, yeah, because obviously it can be a little bit faster if you have one per press, but there's additional cost and infrastructure hit overhead that's associated with that.
You're saying 1 HMI per press, that ratio?
So we're basically just talking about, okay, so you have the one box that powers 4 presses, and then from a user perspective, the floor operator would then come up and start whatever job, so log in, so that there's that authentication piece. Would we want to have that, one of those terminals at each press, or would we want to have like one terminal covering an entire cluster of presses down the line?
I think just due to the dynamic nature of our production, we would need to have one per press.
Your machine's running automatic, aren't they?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, but we have a lot,
But
Yeah.
it
a lot of interaction.
differentiates
Like you run
that.
full auto semi, and most of our runs are never more than 1,000, so.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. We just need to figure out like how that would look like. We can make either one work. It just depends on how much network we need. When we talk about like how many switches we need to add to make sure that everything can be powered.
Sure.
And it'd be preferable to have it wired as opposed to wireless. Because it's going to be more reliable.
If you want to. I was gonna bring that up.
Which
So
we
I was
should
gonna.
be able to do with the Android tablet.
We can put a monitor on the DCM if you like. Well, they can do it. Yeah, no, we don't sell them. No, but no, that's
You can
no,
also
no.
put a monitor right on the DCM. Like if you look at the Stanley,
Yeah.
Implement that though.
you've got the data collection module and an ELO touch monitor connected up above. So you can also do that and then still have tablets or whatever you want close to the machines or at the machines.
The DCM can kind of double as just to drive a monitor. That's the beauty of the whole browser-based system. You can, and if you decided you wanted to start out with one display for 4 machines, and then said, well, that doesn't work. All you got to do is go get displays. We don't limit the amount of browser connections you can have, so it's very easy to expand or contract on that.
I have a quick question, just going back to something we talked about being a beta partner. Do you have, or beta tester, is there any kind of a sliding change in fee if we become a beta tester where we're working together with you and makes the product cheaper?
It's more expensive.
expensive.
I'm doing my job.
Good meeting, yeah.
You didn't say yes or no, did you?
Yeah.
Not yet, I'm still waiting.
I was expecting that question, but I thought maybe an email after the meeting, but,
Alright, well, I just threw it out.
the customers that we've been dealing with have been current users. This is new, so I'll take a look at it because this will be a joint effort. There will be some benefits for you guys because you guys strictly on a list of machines and stuff you gave us. We're gonna have,
Yeah, there's
guys
be
come
more
in,
detailed.
drill down into what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
That's right here? Yeah, budget,
I came
budgetary.
in late, so.
Yeah, it's budgetary numbers, it's all based on standard cost.
And it's all encompassing of all process monitoring. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a lot there.
Yeah.
and we got it by location as well. And one thing we didn't do, and typically we do with companies that have multiple plants, we work on some kind of enterprise arrangement. So this is a high reference, if you will, and going along with the working together on the beta testing, we'll definitely look at making things more attractive to make that happen.
Well, it's exciting to have that opportunity, so it could be a win-win.
Yeah, in either case, him or one of his guys has to come up here and dig into everything, so we
Yeah.
don't miss something.
Yeah.
Or we can take things out of that because I'm assuming we overestimated on this budgetary quote based upon the information we have.
Yeah, so like I see, $1,400 per Toshiba press, and then the data collection module, is that the one that goes to 4 presses?
Yeah, yeah.
We divide that by 4.
Yes,
Right,
that's
yeah.
how I laid that out as a
It-
general reference.
So the 1,400 per Toshiba, that's kind of the licensing per press
For
per
the
se?
machine interface.
That's for our interface to the Toshiba press. Yeah, ours.
That's just PLC process.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then what's the difference between the DCM and the PLC interface?
The PLC interface is the software that we've written to extract the data from the PLC and interpret it as for what process variables they are and what.
If you weren't doing process monitoring, you wouldn't have that. Or if you weren't trying to do process monitoring from a Toshiba machine, you wouldn't have that line item there. If you were just doing production monitoring, that's a specific interface to go pull all that process data. The production monitoring, the cycle counting is standard. That doesn't require the interface.
This doesn't have any of the tablets or interfaces.
No.
No, those again.
Well, we expected to have to do a report after we get additional information
Oh,
about
yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah.
And tablets, we'll definitely look at it as an option, then you guys can decide maybe.
What was assumed in this document was all the Toshiba machines would be process monitored through an interface,
And then the other.
and all the Arbergs. Now, if you go down to the other machines, or the Cincinnati machines, you'll see some line items like 20 individually isolated analog ports. That's because I just made some assumptions that I don't have a machine interface there. So we're going to have to go. What an example of not having to talk about what we had before. I just did this with a customer with some older RoboShop machines, Cincinnati Millicron RoboShops machines. The RoboShop machine has programmable analog and digital outputs. So what we do is we actually ran 4 digitals and 2 analogs to the DCM. The 2 analogs were the pressure and the position profiles. So we watch those through the shot. Then I have mold close, I have injection, I have hold, and I have screw rotate signals. From those, I derive 20 some odd process variables because we can read profiles at points in time. That's all part, but that's what the Toshiba would give you automatically. The Toshiba's going to say, hey, here's your max injection pressure, here's your hold pressure. If you can't do that, we can, through those analogs and digitals and logic we build for you inside the DCM, derive that from direct signals from the machine. So anything you see there that says the 20 analog card was added, that was something where I assumed, just from my experience and some basic assumptions I made, because I don't really know your factory that well, that we may have to go that route. But that's really the nice thing, the cool thing about the system when you talk about legacy machines, is even if you've got old machines, heck, we've gone into, old Mako 6 machines, and stuff like that, and gone in and gone into the controller and found those outputs. We can interface directly to thermocouples. You can run a thermocouple output directly to our analogs if you need to, and we can read that voltage directly without anything in between. So
We've also recently learned through another customer that Millicron isn't supporting the older controls like the CAMAC series for what they call the host computer interface. The only way you can find a communication card if the machine doesn't already have it is to find it on eBay. They
Last
even told us
technical guy retired.
yeah, they even told us in a conference call that they didn't have anybody on staff any longer to support those interfaces.
Well, for the most part, we want production
Sure.
We would probably, I can't see us do process monitoring for anything other than the Toshibas and the Arborgs.
The Arborgs, okay. Okay.
Arbor LSR?
Yes.
Yeah, but the UK.
Yep. And that should be straight. And then if that's the case, then like the others here, you could just take away, and this would be pretty accurate as far as just that cost. Now there's going to be other things like Larry mentioned. This is totally budgetary. I made a lot of assumptions in this quote. So
Yeah, when we have Charlie probably more, like I said, one of the guys come up and work with you and just get specific as to what you're going to do on each machine, and then we'll come back and give you a quote based upon that. Because you'll have a better idea of how much time it's going to take to do this stuff. And then if you guys are going to do some of the base wiring that typically customers do, that reduces the amount of our on-site time, which saves money for you guys as well.
one other thing I will mention real quick is when we get through this initial, you get this all installed. I know you guys. Okay, what happens if I buy 3 more machines? One of the training things is we will train you too on how to add things to the system. So you don't necessarily, you can call us up and say, hey, we got 4 more machines. Send us a DCM. Send somebody up to commission them. Great. But now you'll have a system. So we're perfectly happy training you how to do it yourself.
That would be something.
A lot of customers are at that point. EFCO Plastics was all 8 or 9 of their factories. They do it all themselves. The company he used to work for, with their 7 factories, do it all themselves. Hunter Industries, with their two factories, 200 machines, do it all themselves.
Is the licensing per machine life of the machine, or is that a annual or some form of?
That's a one-time cost, and then we have an annual package maintenance user agreement that's a percentage of that. So it runs anywhere from 12 to 16% of the system value for the annual maintenance.
Okay, so after the requote, then the yearly maintenance would be 12 to 16% of that.
Yeah, we'll actually put that in there so you have a reference to that going forward, and I'll show you the document. We didn't include, in our budgetary quotes, we don't have a formal statement of work.
Yeah. There's a lot of things missing in there that would be in a full quote.
To get you guys at least some overview as to where you might be at.
Sure. Yep, it's important understanding for
Oh, yes.
for future stages.
Yes, it's all part of the estimate for future return on investment. So
Yep.
yeah.
So I do want to talk, it's slightly outside of this room scope, but how this system works with CNC machines. It's not the number one requirement, but if this system works with CNC machines, it makes it a lot more attractive. As the other half of our business, even our mold making area, is all POS machines, and then our Brooklyn Park facility, which is up to 300, give or take, POS machines.
Wow.
Changes every minute.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of briefly touched base on it. Eric's our CNC expert, so can you guys just talk a little bit about how this system works with CNC machines?
Well, let's break that into 2 chunks. From a production monitoring side, I'm assuming it'll be like the molding. Is you're going to start out just monitoring cycles, monitoring how many parts I made on my CNC, scrap, things like that. That's pretty simple and straightforward. That's a cycle signal from each machine, which we can get very easily. When you move over and you're starting to talk about bringing in, like in a plastics machine where you're bringing in injection pressures and temperatures and things like that, now in the CNC world, maybe you're bringing in spindle loads or different timers, different things out of the program. And a lot of that depends on the CNC machine. We can deal with a variety of outputs. We have interfaces built to go straight into PLCs, Allen Bradley PLCs, and, B&R stuff, to go in and say, read those tags, get out what we want. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the machine, and you may have a wide variety of different vintages of CNC machine. I don't know if you do or not. If that doesn't work, and that's much like the machine interface, if we can't go in there and grab that automatically, that's when we go to the option like I was talking about, the recent customer I quoted out where Haas was actually, they were able to go in and program outputs. So that example I used of using, mold close and injection and stuff and 2 profiles, we can do the exact same thing from the Haas machine. They can give us an analog output of, say, spindle load. We'll rush it through the cycle and pull different points off of it. That's all configurable in our system. So it's really not all that different. It's just about what you can get out of what the machine can provide you, and what it can't provide you, then we have to go get. If you follow my, if we can go right into a control set, into a PLC, and grab, cycle by cycle data, things like timers and things like great. We can, and that is one, and I can put on my hat from the 13 years I spent as a customer of Syscon PlantStar. That was one of the biggest things I liked about Syscon is we went at them. How many times did we come at you with, hey, we need to interface with this, you don't have it, and we'll build it for you. We got a team of software developers that have built hundreds and hundreds of machine and control interfaces. So some of that may be a little bit of a question mark, but I'm confident we can get that data out for you. It's really shouldn't be an issue.
One additional piece, I think, on that point as well. They also are looking at Mazak.
Okay.
The Haas mills, I think they're looking at changing those over. I think looking at Mazak and one other manufacturer. We want to see if it could be compatible with that.
Sure.
I think one of the other things they're looking for as well is being able to feed. So the CNC process is more automated in terms of feeding jobs to the mills. So ideally, I believe one of the requirements for this platform for them would be to also be able to feed jobs from a file server.
Sure, yeah, feeding the programs down to which shouldn't be a problem because most modern mills, that's just a very simple file exchange.
Yep.
It's just nothing more than us. We would come up with what you'd still have to build the files, so to speak, on the CNC machine.
Yeah.
We would just store them and link them. So when you start a certain job in PlantStar, I'm running part number XYZ, whatever. Then PlantStar knows enough. Hey, go grab that file, push it to this IP address, this machine, whatever we have to do.
Okay, so it'd be more of a pull because right now we're actually the server where we have basically a main server that pushes
Sure.
jobs to mills.
Yep.
Right now, we're not necessarily opposed to changing that because right now we're kind of in the process of figuring out how does this need to work. But does it have the ability to be able to just receive jobs, or does it have to pull them?
Well, if you want to continue to, if you have a central server and a program you're doing that, then that can drive us. We can wait for that to happen and just grab a signal, grab data transfer. When that happens, and then PlantStar says, oh, they just moved this job over to PlantStar. We can do some custom stuff in our system that links it over and says, oh, that's this one. Load the PlantStar job, load the PlantStar settings, and away it goes. Or if you want PlantStar to drive, then that's kind of where my first explanation was going. Where it's okay, they changed the job in PlantStar. PlantStar would then go to your central server, find that, and move it for you. I guess it really depends on who's driving, so to speak. And we've done it either way, and we can do it either way.
To be honest, I'm not an subject matter expert on that whole process.
Sure.
Either. I just have a rudimentary understanding of kind of how it works.
Yep.
So I think there'd be some more details that would need to be gathered from someone who's a little bit more technical on that.
What kind of functionality are we looking for out of our CNC capability?
Well, I guess I had to step out, but did you talk about MT Connect at all?
No, we didn't.
Okay. So does this interface with MT Connect?
Yeah, we can build an interface to MT Connect. Yes.
Because I think
Yes.
we're actually developing some type of transfer of Haas to MT Connect because that's what. No, it's going to be an internal thing that we're working on. To take the data out of the Haas machines, which is kind of like proprietary, whatever their connection is.
Yeah.
And then I'll put it into MT Connect because all of our future machines are going to be MT Connect
Sure.
machines. So we want one universal
Yep.
protocol language. Yeah.
Our CEO years ago sat on the Communication Standards Board for the Society of Plastics Industry. That's where one of common protocols, and what came out of that was the SPI protocol that our company developed and became standard for the auxiliary equipment. He also participated in providing guidance when they were doing all the initial development of MT Connect. So we're not unfamiliar with it. We're very familiar. We just haven't written that program yet.
I think, I guess, and maybe you went over this a little too, but did you demo any dashboards or anything like that?
Yeah.
Because I think one thing is our maintenance needs to be responsive to alarms.
Sure.
Right now, they don't really know what the alarm is or where it's occurring geographically on the floor. So I'm not sure what this all
that's where MT Connect steps in, because what happens is if that mill faults, we're going to read that fault right away from MT Connect and use our assist call, or we can do many things. We can send up just a simple alert, turn on a light, ring a bell, send an email, send a text message, whatever. Or we can also do things where we interface with automatically kick it into a downtime. If the most invasive way to do it is we can then fire an output that you guys could do if you want to physically stop the machine. But many times the machine stops itself. You don't need that level from us. You need us just to tell the world, hey, this press has got this problem right now. So your reaction time is much shorter than waiting for somebody to see.
The alerts can be visual, they can be audible through the paging system, they can be email, text messaging alerts, they can be public alerts or private even, to configure it that way if you want.
It has tool life monitoring capability as well, so.
Yeah, with what he showed you with in 4.0 with the tool components is we do track the amount of cycles and time on each component of a tool. So what you have, like, in a CNC machine, you load might be a group of tools, might be 30, I don't know, however many you put in there. Each one of those individual components would be set up in PlantStar. And if you change one, let's say one wore out, and you change it out with the same thing, you'd have the ability to mark that in there, and it would keep track of that time.
In tool sets that are staying in the machine, that makes it a little bit easier. How do you, if you've got ever-changing tools, is there like a barcode system or some way to track tool holders? Or?
That would also, it would be included in the whole thing, and then we would just we would use cycle time and standard, of the cycle, how much of that time is it with this tool. We don't directly do that, no. Like if your holders are being, changed out, and if you're pulling new tools in all the time, it would have to be part of that. Here's the group of 40 tools that do what that thing does. If it's changing 4 times to get to the end, we'll know that there were that many cycles on that component. It'll be in there. But the actual time, like that I took that tool and used it, wouldn't be direct. It would be just encompassed in the whole cycle time.
So I have a couple of questions, unless there's more CNC stuff. Okay, so one question is, if we have the system operational right now, and we bought a new press, can you show us how we would configure that as a new press?
I'm not sure if that's the big program accessible to me. I don't.
That's assuming everything's connected, it just needs to be set up in the system.
It's very simple. We provide you with a configuration.
We are recording this, right?
Yeah, but I don't have access to that side of the program in my demo system.
There's a configuration utility that's pretty simple. It's a 3-step process. Once you and it depends on, you may have a new press that you're bringing onto a current DCM because you have space. And that's a simpler process because you have to set up the DCM. You just have to go in. There's a way you go in. You add the machines. You configure your process variables. If it's a whole new DCM, then there's a couple more steps go in to set up the IP configuration. But yes, we will train you on how to do that. And it's a pretty straightforward and simple process.
And so that actually is a good point too in terms of adding an additional press. But what about adding additional DCM? Like, what does the configuration process look like there?
Same thing. Adding a DCM is the system. You can just continually add DCMs. Yeah. So it's a user. There's
Is it visible?
Yeah. What you have to do is on the DCM itself. And normally, what we'll do for you, if you're buying a new DCM from us, you provide us with all of the initial setup. Here's the IP, the gateway, the net mask, everything it needs. We'll ship it to you configured. So it's plug and play. All you do is go into this software utility and set it up in the PlantStar system.
Is it visible that when you've reached your limit for the DCM?
There isn't one.
Well, we only have four presses. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it pops up a box and tells you can't put any more on this. Yes.
So then I don't know if there's any more to this.
I don't have access to that side of the program.
Would you guys be able to send
They're
us a little,
afraid of salesmen doing things.
Yeah. Would you be able to send us like a kind of a quick demo of that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Even like
Sure.
next week or so?
Yeah.
I think that would be because that's one of the things I came to see with wanting to know how long it takes and how difficult it is to get these configured.
Yeah.
More than likely, that's going to be something that's going to end up living with my team, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'd also like to know if it's automatable, so like it's something that we could streamline to make it as simple and quick as possible.
Okay. Yeah, we don't in our current system we don't normally do that. It's a manual setup. But honestly, to set up a DCM in the current system, you're talking about 10 minutes. I mean, it's really not. Now, if you have to, if for some reason, like it was, some customers will keep a couple spares on hand. You know, part of the maintenance agreement gets you hardware replacement, but there is a time, you know, we got to ship you a new DCM. You may have one on hand and then there's another step where you actually have to, you just have to plug a monitor and keyboard because they're blind units on the production floor. You plug a monitor and keyboard in a simple 5-minute, go in and set, there's a configuration page you run through, set everything up, save it, plug the thing into the network, run this thing, takes you about another 10 minutes, and you're good to go.
One issue we have to also factor into is that these are likely to be on an isolated network from everything else. That's kind of how we have everything set up in CNC. So that would also add some additional overhead to that particular configuration. So you need the network configured if we're adding new boxes.
And then the second question that I had, is the system capable of actually displaying the plant layout rather than a tile format on the dashboard?
It'd be a custom display. Yeah, one of the things we run in our server is a web. We run our own web server. Of course, we're displaying our own page through the web. We've done hundreds of different custom displays for customers. So if you want something that lays the machines out in certain orders, I mean, our displays now allow you to put them by display group and put them in certain orders, but maybe you wanted them to be
So you could show the plant
against a map of the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't offer that as standard features. We do those as custom. Like when we quoted that to you, if that's something you want that be in here as a, you know, as a custom, as a development charge to do that, and doesn't take much to do that.
I don't know what we would want at this moment, but I just want to know if that's possible.
Sure.
Or do we have the capability to do that ourselves?
We've got some customers that have developed their own.
Go ahead. That's one thing about the open source database. I mean, once the system's proprietary to get the stuff in the database. Once it's in that database, we don't charge you to get it out. You know, right now we're running on Enterprise MySQL, and that plays well with a lot of different systems. People use Tableau, ClickView, people homegrown stuff. You know, gone in and built a heck one. My old job, I used Microsoft Access. I built a whole suite of reports in Microsoft Access that came directly out of PlantStar.
So what I hear you guys say is well, you have all these dashboards and all these templates and stuff like that. We could use our software engineers to
Sure.
Extract the data.
Yeah, maybe you already have a BI tool. Yeah, yep.
I could imagine that as we use this as our dashboard on the floor and then export to the general managers, the C-suite, like, hey, here's high level how we're doing.
Yeah.
Like have a little red green dot on each press in the page?
Or yes,
Even higher level, just scrap OEE, efficiency,
Got it.
utilization.
Total.
Yeah, we have a suite of dashboards and overview that we already have, but yeah, a lot of people get to the point where, no, we want it to look our way, and you can do that.
Or plug in the ones they already have that they're looking at.
Sure. Yep. We'll provide you with the database structure, you know, give you a little assistance, how everything lays out in the database, and then you just go and grab it.
So, couple of questions. We're a 24/7 facility. So, on a Saturday night at 3 a.m., when the system goes down, who do we call and how available are they?
Gary Benedict's Syscom PlantStar. Now we have 24. I'll let you speak to this,
We
but
have 24/7 support. There's a call number that you can give it, and Dell coming through VPN connection and do troubleshooting. One of the things that's nice about our system is we've got the ability to go all the way down to the data collection module remotely and see the digital inputs, see the analog inputs. When we do get to the point of doing Toshiba interface, if we've lost one of those, we can reboot it remotely. And then we also do diagnostics that if there is a board failure, then we see that, we can set up an advanced exchange and get you taken care of right away. So a lot of our competition can't go to that depth. But then you've also got the beauty, and this has happened, you know, we love Stanley Engineered Fasteners, but they've got some guys at Stanley Corporate who have done some amazing reports with Tableau. They hit our database at about 2 o'clock in the morning and create over 1 billion lines of code. Well, it helped fry the server. The virtual server couldn't handle it.
it didn't fry it, but it shut it down.
Yeah, shut it down.
A million, a query that returned almost 1 billion records.
Yeah.
I thought somebody didn't optimize their query is what it came down
We
to.
got the call, the server went down.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is
Yeah.
the data collection module were still fully functional, up, running, storing up to 20 shifts of data. So with the operator interfaces that they have, the operators didn't have a clue that they lost the server. Didn't matter to them. But then we were able to figure out that your folks down in Atlanta did this to you, not us. And,
To that point, too, the operator screens, the screens the operators use to change jobs and stuff, those are actually served from the data collection modules. So that speaks to his redundancy. So if for some reason you would lose a server, as long as you still have network access to that DCM on the floor, and that goes to your off-site question. You know, if I have my server sitting, down south somewhere or wherever I had it, the DCMs will continue to serve their pages. It's just a matter of running out of jobs then. Your schedule system's pushed all these jobs into PlantStar. If you run out of those jobs, now you need your server to come back because you need to repopulate jobs. But that usually gives you a few days anyways,
So does the contract define some kind of an SLA that states you have a certain amount of time to assist us, or response time, or is it built into the?
Part of the maintenance package.
It should be in the maintenance agreement. I'll look at that, but I know we've worked with SLA agreements before. Some customers prepare their own, so we end up getting them to
I don't know that
tweak it.
incorporated.
But you guys referenced something in your request for proposal about an SLA. I thought that I'd asked you to get.
yeah.
Because I was going to
Alex
look at
was
what
gonna
you
get.
guys had and see if we could make that work. I don't know.
Say that again?
Your standard licensing agreement. It was in your one document, and I asked you, and you said I don't think you'd even seen it, but you were going to look. See
Oh, the master service.
Yeah, master
That's
service.
what I was asking.
Yeah, Chris is looking into that.
Okay. Because I can look at, or we've got people who evaluate on it myself and see maybe that'll work, and we don't have to disagree or make any concessions either way. So I kind of want to look at that before we got here, but just wasn't available.
And as far as remote access, we accommodate any VPN.
That's another thing I was actually going to ask as well from the support team that we need to have. So we can provision VPN tokens for the support team. However, we do have a hard requirement of needing a one-to-one. We can't provision like a generic VPN token.
Sure.
It has to be to the specific technician so that we have an identification.
We do that now. Do you use like token apps on your phone?
Yeah.
Stuff
Either
like
a hard
that.
token or a virtual application.
Yeah, like a RSA or something like that. Yeah, we've done that for other. And then what customers usually do is they'll give like each, and the only thing we'll have to do with that is if we get a new support tech, if we have turnover, then we got to come to you and say, Joe Schmo's gone. Here's. But yeah, we can.
We can essentially have a dedicated support team that would cover a 24-hour, 365 cycle.
Okay. Yep.
So I assume that that's what we need from a support perspective.
Yes.
It's 5 to 11. Did we have just to 11, or did we have?
We actually have a room, I believe, until 12.
Okay.
I personally am okay with going ahead, but
Yeah.
I understand everyone's resources are.
I'm just calling all the time in case someone had a hard stop.
People want to keep going, keep going. What's left in the agenda? Just Q&A, just quick, just Q&A, and just
Was there gonna be a tour?
probably arrange one.
Yeah, I assume all three of you are U.S. citizens.
Last time I am. These guys are.
You should know. So that's,
That's what it says on my passport.
He's a Minnesotan.
Check on that.
So do you guys have any questions for us, or is there anything that, and I'm going to say, you guys have probably done this more than once, so what are some of the things that companies trip up on, get caught up on, and you say that, I would say you're going to coach us through the process, but it's going to end up being that way. What are some of the things that you recommend to us that we should be thinking about, should be asking the right questions, are we looking in the wrong direction?
No, but you made the perfect statement a while ago. It's crawl, walk, run. I can speak from that because I've been through a PlantStar implementation seven times, and the getting the hardware in place, getting everything to function. That's half the battle. The second is using. All that data is great if you're not using it, and I definitely recommend an approach where and mistakes have been made by customers where boom, here's everything. Here's process monitoring. Here's you got to do all this stuff now today, and people just go, whoa, wait a minute. And then there's that curve is much, getting from point A to point B is a lot longer than And that's really, in my experience, that's where success or failure lies, in your people and your implementation. Give them this part, get good at it, then do this part, get good at it, do this part. Because it is especially if you decide to go the process monitoring, there's a lot of new stuff that you're going to throw in front of people all at once. So,
But an automotive parts motor that 70 some odd machines is they bought the system configured to monitor everything throughout, but it was set up in cell concepts. So they focused on one cell first with training and getting their standard procedures right there, and then they rolled it to the rest of the factory floor. They had a total investment of about $350,000 in 6 months' time. Their ROI was $600,000, and they were able to eliminate weekend overtime because they used that approach: standardization, repeat, 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 and took off great for them.
Who was that?
That was a TRW factory.
If we were to go forward, who would we be working with on a daily basis?
Charlie or one of his guys will be assigned as a project manager, and you'll liaise with them on a daily basis. As one of his guys, he'll oversee it. He's the guy, or the guy. And then commercial issues and stuff, you'll be dealing with Gary initially, and then if either one of those two go well, then you would be calling me. So,
Don't go well, because he'll be calling me if they don't.
okay, fair enough. So, but yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. We'll assign you, and I'm sure you'll have a project leader that you. So, yeah, we'll have those folks working together, and then I guess things will feed through the two. We dealt with some large implementations with Stanley and stuff, and when you get 40 people trying to coordinate everything, it doesn't work too well. So,
yeah,
I prefer you guys meet and have a channel. We'll do the same thing.
And you'll get a statement of work from Charlie that includes, these are our steps, these are your steps. That becomes a living document as we move forward.
Who does what, who's responsible for what. I have a whole matrix of things. So, and I'll give that to you, and you can say, no, we want you to do this, or we'll take care of this, and we'll pine that down to exactly what it works for both of
Clarity
us.
up front keeps us out of trouble, because I thought you were doing this, we're down that path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Sure.
I like Chris's question of the questions that you guys have for us, but I don't want to overstep anybody else's questions. What other questions
Do we
you
need
have
to
for
know
us?
more about their MES system? So
Well, yeah, that'll definitely be one of the questions that's come up in my mind, and that was going to be the next place I go. Is so, many times when we install, we are the MES system. There is no other MES system. But this isn't the first time by any means. We've worked with other MES systems to integrate. So we would definitely need to talk about that piece. And when you have two MES systems in place, who's going to do what? What part of the process is going to be in your guys' MES? What are we going to do? And then that varies greatly depending on, we just did a customer that was using IQMS as an MES system, and all they really wanted from us was process monitoring. So we actually, what we're doing is we're grabbing IQMS's when they schedule jobs and stuff. We're hooking IQMS's jobs, and automatically we have routines that are just automatically duplicating all that work in PlantStar, so we get the right the process put in, the right limits and everything, and we process monitor. Now they're actually thinking about, now that they've seen our system, maybe backing into some more of our scheduling stuff. But that was like an extreme where they didn't want to do any scheduling or anything with us. It was all just process monitoring. So that would be another question is, how that MAS integration is going to work and to what level each party is going to be responsible.
I'll answer the kind of lengthy. So we are a software company that happens to make parts.
Okay.
So we have plenty of software resources at our disposal. Currently, they are not.
I was gonna say, we're just raising asterisks there right now.
Yeah. So
In terms of availability,
they're very busy helping to build our next generation of software, and so what we need is something that we can stand up on its own, and then once those resources become available, tie in to,
Sure.
to the database more. So we have an opportunity now to kind of get that up and running and see how it works. Crawl, that walk and run phase. Hopefully those resources will be available to kind of integrate that in. So I see a lot of the data production processes or production monitoring as well as process monitoring. Our software engineers going in and extracting out from the database to enrich our MES system with the data that you put.
Okay. And as you spoke before, your MES system is going to drive scheduling and drive job changes. You know, that's still going to happen on your side. So there will be some custom development where we'll have to automate our side to work with that. So you don't want to do it twice. We don't want you to have to schedule a job in MES and schedule a job in PlantStar. That's silly work. So
it is, and you know, if I asked, hey, can I just have one resource? I'd say absolutely no. So that's where it's a little challenging at first. So we understand we may have to put small amounts of information in two places. We want to minimize that as much as possible.
yeah, and learn as you go forward how not to do that anymore. And that happens a lot of times at the onset. We're going to do a little duplicate work because we're now going to learn. Okay, we want to do it this way, and then we'll So we can work with you on that. That shouldn't be an issue. It's just we've done believe me, we've done it many different ways. You know, our system was really built for the small to large molder, the small molder that doesn't really use any of these business intelligence tools. They can do it all right in PlantStar. You can manually create product standards. You can schedule all that stuff right up to what things like you guys are doing. So that will be something though as we get to once we get through this process, if we get to the point that we'll have to talk a little bit more about, and there'll be some customization items, some development time, so to speak, to go into the quote, to make that all work for you. And we'll lay out a scope of work document on that, talk to you, whoever, here's how it's all going to work. And, we'll work through that. So, okay.
I have a quick question kind of piggybacking off of that, just kind of looking at future state. Do you have the ability to tie in information directly into like AX, for instance? Or to integrate with AX?
We haven't done that to this point. I don't see why we couldn't.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily sure that we would need, that would be a requirement.
Yeah.
Just kind of thinking through it as a potential feature enhancement. It would be interesting if we could actually we have a job that's kind of working its way through AX, and if we have it in the production cycle, we could actually tie it back to the specific job contained within AX.
Yeah.
Similar to what we do with the JD.
Yeah, and we've done, that's a little bit like what we're doing with JD Edwards, where we left. I mean, historically, people were happy with an end to shift update. Here's my stuff out of PlantStar. Yeah. Now people want it up to date, real time.
Yeah.
So the JD Edwards interface was all Java. It was all written. It was all with they worked with their JD Edwards people and did it all with JSON calls and Java. And our developers worked right with theirs to get all that stuff in place. Basically, the DCM is sitting there on a assignable interval. We set it up that way because at first they were doing it like every 3 hours, and they wanted to get closer. The DCM just basically sends information out, waits for the response back from all the Java stuff. I'm not a programmer, so I'm not going to go any more depth than that. But and then if it was a good if the transaction succeeded, we move on. If transaction failed, then PlantStar had to save hold that until the next transaction cycle, do some recovery things and things like that. We're all built in there. So, and we designed that all. We worked with their developers, and it was a pretty streamlined process, truthfully.
Yeah. I think you came in a little bit after I went past that case study with recent case, their director of IT, and ambassadors. She's published now in the J.D. Edwards user group publication that integration not only improved the shop floor manufacturing OE functionality, but up through supply chain with reduction. It's in the packet for you, with reduction in urgent calls for expedited shipments of material to the factory or expediting shipments to the customer. And so that was a benefit we anticipated would be, but we didn't want to hang our hat on it. But to hear the customer say, yeah, it's really improved our whole supply chain. So if we can do that,
yeah,
we'll be happy to.
I was just thinking it'd be potentially a good way to give real-time analytics that could feed back to the sales team, even to the
from a supply chain standpoint, so that your buyers can do a better job of buying resin,
Parts, yeah, all the materials and stuff.
materials, whatever,
Yeah.
bags, boxes,
Yep.
skids on a just-in-time basis.
I think what you're trying to get is we just want to make the pizza tracker. But
Yeah,
parts.
basically, yeah. That's
We want to see
kinda
the
what
part
I'm
bouncing across
Parts
the
through the
screen.
screen, yeah.
It's funny, but, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
our automated system and people have their own account that they log into, yeah, it's something that.
Have it thrown into the UPS truck and bounce down the road.
If there are any cameras in the UPS trucks, you can
Yeah.
actually see the box while it's coming through.
The dog count checking on your parts.
Yeah. Where are they at now?
Our barcode label printing software supports RFID functionality, so
They're good.
I do have another question I thought of, but, in the phone interview, you talked about, monitoring dryers.
Yeah.
And so, and in the context of how much time they've been drying. So, could you go into a little bit more detail of how you connect to the dryers and what you've done in the past to then display when materials dry and verify that the dryer's been turned down?
What we generally do is, a lot of the dryers we've done have been SPI interfaces, but we've done other interfaces. But we set up those dryer variables as part of the machine variables. So whatever dryer that or machine that dryer is connected to, when you have those, here's your maximum injection pressure, then there's a set of variables that's, dry times, things like that, with those exact limits on it. So as soon as we violate something, you're going to get the same alert you would for any molding, any machine condition. It's basically they're tied there. It's almost like that dryer's connected to them as part of the machine, is the way it comes out of our system. Now we could set it up as a standalone machine if you really wanted to.
You probably would need to.
And we have a lot of dryers.
Yeah, we have.
We move them around.
Over 100 dryers
Yeah.
here, and we do move them around. There
Yeah.
are a few that are stationary, but those are some of the newer ones which we probably wouldn't need that functionality on.
Yeah.
But it would be something that we would be interested in to get alerts
we've done some
and
things.
verify that things are
We've
true.
done some things with quick disconnects at the machine side, so you can bring the dryer up or hot runner, just whatever up, that we get the connectivity. It's nothing new to us. One of our customers in Wisconsin, they historically moved welders around, and we're monitoring the welders.
Ultrasonic spin welders and stuff, yeah. And they just, the thing is, and again, that's all, it's really kind of customer specific, because we did this where I used to work in our PET facility. They had dryers that rolled up the machine, and they used a big quick disconnect. So it really didn't matter if it was dryer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When it was connected to that machine, it was dryer machine 1, and it was set. But if you choose to, hey, I want to monitor dryer 1 as its own entity all the time, then we just make it a machine in PlantStar and we monitor it that way. Whatever works best for you, and that we can do it either way.
I could even potentially know what material we put in that dryer and then know that after 4 hours it needs to kick it down. Could it send that? Could it push that?
Yeah.
Well,
I think the our MES system would take care of
yeah, it has
what
it.
material goes in that dryer.
But then to be able to interface back out and say, okay, hold temp for 4 hours and then
After
go
it's reached its dry.
It'd be like a recipe, so to speak, for how the dryer runs, and it'd be loaded into PlantStar.
Part, I would imagine, like, because every part could potentially be different.
We have dry times, and so
But
we would
right now
have to
it
feed them.
requires a person to go over and drop temp versus having a system that automates the temp drop and says it's ready. Based on the recipe. Press is ready and the mold's in.
That's what Gary discussed with the PLC, as far as those dryers, and yeah, we could do something like that. We could put an extra, basically be a custom device in the PLC, in the DCM, that would do that sort of thing. Send the outputs to the dryer to kick off, and whatever the dryer interface is, whether it's SPI or whatever, we'd have to work through that. That'd be specific to the dryer itself, but
It would have to connect to the DCM. Then.
yeah.
And they're portable.
So that would take one port as a separate machine
Yep.
of the 4 port.
It's
Yeah.
just another level of complexity that
Is beyond, okay.
it's possible. It's just our dryers are never in the exact same. Most of our dryers are in different locations as they dry.
Yeah.
So
For most of them are not sewage, so the interface should be standardizable.
Did you guys want to see the plan?
Actually, when I was
Know where
outside,
they're
they had,
plugged in at.
big rollers.
You've seen the plan.
Wheels, and we had
I was going to say, this guy's probably already seen the plan.
Anytime. Anytime.
It is possible.
I'd love to see the plan.
So these are from our front desk.
If you lose a hand, you lose a hand.
Well, no, they don't respond that. Actually, it's more important that we have a huge number of customers that count on us to protect their confidentiality. Every part out there is the newest, latest, greatest design. We respectfully request that you guys don't repeat what you see. There's a lot of things out there that really are.
Well,
We're on the
we have an NDA with them anyway, right? So this is just over and above that.
Yeah.
So it's really just any verbal, any visual, and no recording. We ask that you leave your cell phones in this room when you go take the tour.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that other injection molding companies don't do, and we know that we're weird, but but it really works.
We're a
for us.
unicorn.
Yeah,
We're
we are.
weird.
We are a unicorn.
Yeah, we got weird. I thought we replaced the word weird.
Awesome.
Yeah, look in the HR manual, it's a unicorn.
Or the supply chain manager.
During the winter, it's like,
So 5 pages. And a lot of,
Okay, there aren't any other questions?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
It's kind of a
Yes, sir.
future state. I have a question. Oh, you. But you guys touched on batch control before?
I'm sorry?
You guys have touched on batch control.
Batch control?
Gary,
What does that look like? And how does it work with like a first in, first out recorder? Can you touch on that a little bit? Knowing what's in there and.
You've got side shields.
So go right over top, I think.
You answering that?
Yeah.
Batch control.
Yeah, sorry, I was messing with my glasses.
Knowing what's in there and how much drying time is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the batch control would be you giving us, I called it a recipe, as specifications for whatever, and then we would make that part of the product standard information. So, I mean, in a simple sense, that's all it would be. When you start that job in PlantStar, we would know, okay, we got to run for 4 hours, come through a cool down cycle for whatever settings you need us to push, we'll push. It's very much so just a customizable piece that we're going to put together based on the way it works for you guys.
And we've done lot traceability quite a bit as well. We've done material lot traceability as well.
Yeah.
So I should probably stop the recording.
Yeah, I think that we're good.
Is everyone else on the line?
Yeah.
We've done several seminars on that over the years with customers because a lot of people on the floor don't understand that. You know, as they tell you,
They have stopped recording.
No, I might have to.
You might, yeah, that's right, you had to start.
they don't understand the concept. It's become more of an art last 10, 12 years. Maybe.
And it's saving it to my computer.
Okay, so you're going to send it.
It'll take a minute.
I think he did it now.
It's when you. Yeah, no, I'm still the presenter. It should have. But I think when you hit the stop button, it takes a while because it's actually now creating all those files. Yeah, they're pretty sizable files for those recordings. I don't know. It doesn't seem to want to.